An American fighter jet has been shot down over Iran. Right now, as this video goes live, the United States military is searching for the crew of an F-15 fighter jet that went down over Iranian territory. The pilot is missing, the plane is gone. And this war, which Donald Trump said just 2 days ago was nearing completion, has just produced the moment that every military commander and every parent of a deployed American service member has been dreading for 35 days. A downed American aircraft on Iranian soil with a missing American crew. And then, in the same 24 hours, Trump posted on Truth Social the words that stopped every energy trader, every finance minister, and every family paying attention to this war cold. He wrote, "The U.S. military hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran. Bridges next, then electric power plants? Hasn't even started. 35 days of war, hundreds of billions of dollars, 13 Americans killed, thousands of Iranian civilians dead, the biggest oil shock in recorded history, the global airline industry in crisis, exam boards canceling school exams across the UAE and Bahrain, and Trump is telling the world that the worst is still to come." This is Geopolity. This is episode 14. The episode where everything this series has been building toward collides in a single day of extraordinary, alarming, and world-changing news. Welcome back. If you have been with us through all 13 previous episodes, you have the complete picture of how we got here. The oil shock, the China calculation, the tariff crisis, Lebanon, Ukraine, Venezuela, Karg Island, the deadline, the No Kings protests, the Saudi base strike, the air raid sirens in 6 countries, the China peace initiative, all of it led to today. Today is day 35, and it is the most consequential single day of this entire war. If you are new here, subscribe now and watch the full series from episode 1, because today's events only make complete sense inside the 35 days of context that came before them. Let us start with the downed fighter jet, because this is the story that will define today's news cycle globally and that changes this war in ways that cannot be undone. A U.S. fighter jet has been shot down over Iran. The U.S. military is searching for the crew. It was not immediately clear whether the jet was shot down by Iranian air defenses or went down for another reason. Let us be precise about what this means regardless of the cause. An American military aircraft is on Iranian soil. That has not happened since the failed hostage rescue mission in 1980, Operation Eagle Claw, when American helicopters crashed in the Iranian desert and 8 American servicemen died. That mission's failure haunted American foreign policy for a generation. It contributed to Jimmy Carter's loss of the presidency. It became a symbol of American military overreach and miscalculation in the Middle East. Whether this F-15 was shot down or experienced a mechanical failure, the image of American wreckage on Iranian soil is one of the most powerful propaganda tools Iran has been handed in 35 days of war. Iranian state media is already broadcasting it. The footage will be shared on every social media platform in every country where people are watching this conflict. It will be used to counter every claim Trump has made about Iran being eviscerated, decimated, and obliterated. Because if Iran is truly obliterated, if its military has been truly destroyed, how does an American F-15 end up on Iranian soil with its crew missing? That is the question that will be asked in every capital, every parliament, and every living room watching this war today. And there is no comfortable answer. Now let us talk about Trump's speech. Because the primetime address Trump delivered to the American nation on Wednesday, April the 2nd, was the speech that was supposed to reassure the world that this war was under control, nearing its end, and being won decisively. It did the opposite. Trump told Americans the war is nearing completion and projected another 2 to 3 weeks of involvement. He said Iran's military capabilities have been effectively decimated. He said American objectives are nearly met. He threatened to bring Iran back to the Stone Ages. Markets took no reassurance from any of it. There were no concrete details about the end of the hostilities with Iran. The market wants a clear outline for a ceasefire and got nothing of the kind. Brent crude rose more than 7.75% after the speech. Oil is now trading above $109 a barrel. Urals, the Russian benchmark, surged past $123. These are not the market reactions of investors who believe a war is nearing completion. These are the market reactions of investors who heard a president describe 2 to 3 more weeks of intensifying strikes with no diplomatic off-ramp, and concluded that the oil shock is going to get worse before it gets better. And then, less than 24 hours after delivering that speech, after telling the world the war is almost won, Trump posted on Truth Social that the U.S. military has not even started destroying what is left in Iran. And he listed what comes next: bridges, then electric power plants. The contradiction is breathtaking. The war is nearing completion. The U.S. hasn't even started. Both statements from the same president within 24 hours. This is not a communications failure. This is a window into the actual state of American decision-making at the highest level. A president who genuinely does not know whether he is winning or escalating. A president whose instinct is simultaneously to claim victory for a domestic audience and to threaten maximum destruction for a foreign one. A president whose advisors are telling him different things and whose public statements reflect those internal contradictions in real time. For the world trying to understand what America is going to do next, that uncertainty is itself the most alarming thing about today. Now let us talk about what is actually happening on the ground across the region. Because the scope of the war on April the 3rd, day 35, has expanded far beyond anything that was described as the objective when it began on February the 28th. Iran struck a drone refinery owned by Kuwait's national oil company, sparking fires at several units. Kuwait's air defenses intercepted additional missile and drone attacks. In Abu Dhabi, debris from an intercepted Iranian strike caused a fire at the Habshan gas facility, injuring 12 people. Bahrain intercepted 16 drones in 24 hours. Saudi Arabia's air defenses intercepted 6 drones in a single morning. An Iranian ballistic missile struck an Israeli weapons manufacturer, the Rafael Arms Factory, one of Israel's most important defense industrial facilities. A train station in Tel Aviv was damaged by shrapnel from a missile cluster that was not fully intercepted. These are not the operations of a military that has been decimated. These are the operations of a military that is adapting, innovating, and expanding its targeting to new categories of infrastructure: civilian industrial facilities, transport hubs, energy plants, across an ever wider geographical area. And the human cost. UK exam board Pearson Edexcel confirmed the cancellation of school exams across the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Lebanon for the May and June series. Children, students, young people preparing for qualifications that will shape their futures, having those futures disrupted because adults with power decided war was the answer. Before this war started, the global airline industry had forecast record profits of $41 billion for 2026. With jet fuel prices more than doubling, carriers are cutting flights, shifting to emergency management, and facing the possible grounding of entire fleets. Korean Air is in emergency management mode. New Zealand, Vietnam, the Philippines, airlines across the Indo-Pacific are facing operational crises because the price of the fuel that keeps planes in the air has more than doubled in 35 days. China has banned exports of jet fuel to protect its own supply. Think about what that means. The second largest economy on Earth is so concerned about its own energy security that it has imposed export controls on aviation fuel. The supply chains that keep the global economy moving, the planes, the ships, the trucks, are all being stressed simultaneously by a war that Trump says is almost over, but that markets, airlines, and energy traders clearly do not believe is close to resolution. Now let us talk about Trump's NATO comments, because they represent the most alarming statement about the Western alliance since this war began, and they have received far less attention than they deserve. Trump said in an interview he would consider having the U.S. leave NATO and again criticize the alliance for what he called lackluster military support for the Iran war. Consider that sentence carefully. The President of the United States is publicly considering leaving the most successful military alliance in human history, the alliance that has prevented great power war in Europe for 80 years, because its members will not join a war they were not consulted about, did not authorize, and do not support. NATO's reluctance to join the Iran war is not, as Trump characterizes it, laziness or freeloading. It is the considered strategic judgment of 29 sovereign governments that this war was started without their consultation, without UN authorization, without clear legal basis under international law, and without a credible exit strategy. Their refusal to participate is not a failure of alliance solidarity. It is the alliance functioning as designed, as a defensive treaty organization, not an instrument for one member's offensive military operations. But Trump's threat to leave NATO has consequences that go far beyond the Iran war. Every Russian military planner in Moscow is reading that statement this morning. Every Chinese strategist calculating the Taiwan window is reading it. Every government in Eastern Europe that relies on NATO's Article 5 security guarantee for its national survival is reading it with alarm. The Iran war is not just reshaping the Middle East. Through Trump's NATO comments, through the stress on alliance relationships, through the demonstration of American unilateralism and American overstretch, it is reshaping the entire security architecture of the Western world. We covered this connection in episode 2 when we told you about China watching from the sidelines. We told you then that every week America is consumed by the Middle East is a week China has to calculate its Taiwan window. Today, with a downed American F-15 over Iran, with bridges and power plants next on the target list, with 2 to 3 more weeks of extremely hard strikes announced, and with Trump considering leaving NATO. That window is being measured in weeks, not years. Now let us talk about Iran's president, because something happened on Wednesday that has received far too little coverage given its extraordinary nature. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian wrote an open letter in English on his X account, appealing directly to the American people. He said Iran had tried to negotiate before the U.S. struck. He said his country's people are suffering. He asked Americans directly whether they believe this war is being fought for American interests or for Israeli ones. That letter is a sophisticated piece of strategic communication. It is not aimed at Trump. It is not aimed at the American government. It is aimed at the American public, at the same people who filled 3,000 cities with No Kings protesters 10 days ago. It is aimed at the 60% of Americans who told pollsters they do not trust Trump to make the right decisions about the Iran war. It is aimed at the parents of deployed soldiers, the families paying $4 gasoline, the voters who will decide congressional elections in November. Iran knows it cannot win this war militarily. We have said this in every episode. But Iran believes, based on Vietnam, based on Afghanistan, based on decades of studying how American democracy functions under military pressure, that it can win politically. That if it inflicts enough cost on America for long enough, American public opinion will turn against the war and produce the domestic political pressure that ends it. The downed F-15 is part of that strategy. The letter to the American people is part of that strategy. The sustained attacks on Gulf infrastructure that make daily life in the region uncertain and expensive are part of that strategy. Iran is not fighting to defeat the United States military. It is fighting to exhaust the American political will to continue this war. And it is doing so with considerable sophistication. Now let us talk about your daily life. Because at the end of every episode of this series, we bring the geopolitics home to the personal. And today's developments have personal consequences that are being felt right now. Brent crude above $109, Urals above 123. If you are in the United Kingdom, your petrol price is heading toward 170 pence per liter and rising. If you are in the United States, the $4 gallon you saw this week is the floor, not the ceiling, if Trump follows through on 2 to 3 more weeks of escalating strikes against bridges and power plants. If you are in the UAE or Bahrain or Kuwait, your children's school exams have been canceled. Your workplace may be operating under emergency protocols. The air raid sirens that have become a routine part of life in the Gulf region sounded again this morning. And if you are in Iran, if you are one of the 90 million people living inside the country that has absorbed over a month of American and Israeli bombs, today brought more strikes, more deaths, more destruction of the infrastructure that makes ordinary life possible. The bridge in Karaj that was struck overnight was not a military target. It was the infrastructure that people use to go to work, to take their children to school, to live their lives. 2,000 Iranian civilians dead, according to the most recent credible estimates. Over 1,000 Lebanese civilians dead. Dozens of workers in Gulf states killed while doing their jobs. 13 American service members killed. And today, an American pilot missing over Iranian territory. Every number is a person. Now, let us talk about what the next 72 hours look like. Because April the 6th is 3 days away. The deadline is still formally in place, and the events of today have made what was already a razor's edge decision even more impossible to navigate cleanly. Trump's Truth Social post, Bridges Next, then Power Plants, was written after the speech that said the war is nearing completion. That contradiction is not accidental. It is Trump doing what he always does in high-stakes negotiations, making a maximum pressure statement that is designed to force the other side into making a concession before the deadline rather than after it. The question is whether Iran will read it that way, or whether the Iranian hardliners, who have been arguing throughout this war that America cannot be trusted and that any concession only invites more demands, will read it as confirmation that America intends to destroy Iran's civilian infrastructure regardless of what Iran does. If the hardliners are right, then no concession before April the 6th changes anything. If the moderates are right, if Iran can secure a diplomatic framework that gives it enough of what it needs to stop shooting without losing face domestically, then the next 72 hours are the most important diplomatic window of the entire conflict. The China-Pakistan initiative that we covered in episode 13 is still on the table. The Islamabad back channel is still operating. Oman has historically been the venue where Iran-US communications happen when they happen. Pakistan's foreign minister is still carrying messages, but a downed American F-15 on Iranian soil makes every one of those channels harder to use. It gives Iranian hardliners a propaganda victory to point to. It gives the American military establishment a reason to demand escalation rather than restraint. It gives Trump a domestic political reason to look strong rather than diplomatic. Ceasefire negotiations almost always happen in conditions that look impossible. That is the nature of them. The parties negotiate most seriously when the cost of not negotiating is most visible. And the cost of not negotiating has never been more visible than it is today. 3 days until April the 6th. 14 episodes, 35 days. And the war that began as a surprise is still producing surprises. Geopolity has been here for every one of them. We will be here for the deadline. We will be here on April the 7th, whatever it brings. And we will keep connecting the dots that nobody else is connecting with the clarity and the honesty that this moment demands. If these 14 episodes have given you something, understanding in a time of confusion, connection in a time of fragmentation, a map of a world that too many people find overwhelming, please like this video right now. Every like is a signal to YouTube that this content is reaching people who need it. Subscribe and turn on every notification, because the most important 3 days of this entire series are here. The April 6th episode is coming. You need to be here when it lands. Share this video right now. The downed American fighter jet is the story everyone is going to be talking about today. Most people will see the headline and not understand what it means or how it connects to everything else happening. You have the context, share it. Or give the people in your life the map and comment right now. Tell us, does a downed American F-15 over Iran make you think this war is about to escalate beyond anything we have seen? Do you think there will be a deal by Sunday? And where in the world are you watching from? We read every comment. Your voice shapes what we cover next. 3 days. This is Geopolity. Stay informed, stay analytical, and we will see you on the other side of April the 6th.